Hello, all you skibbies. This is Great Answer, and I'm coming to you from the secret location outside of Pittsburgh, where I am preparing for GRUE number 69. That's right. We have done 68 GRUEs, 3 of them in the past 3 weeks. And the one coming up here in Pittsburgh, the sold out GRUE, is going to be GRUE number 69, which really just makes us giggle because we're really 14 years old. But I'm looking forward to it and really enjoying it. It has been a really busy 3 weeks, which could be construed as being an excuse for why I haven't put out a podcast in a while. But really, there's no excuse. I have actually been gathering material, which is what you're going to hear. You're going to hear several different segments from the South Carolina GRUE, from the Chicago GRUE. I don't actually have one from the Rochester GRUE, simply because the opportunity didn't really come up to do a podcast interview during that time. But I do have a couple of segments that I got from I got to visit Moco Laboratories, Moco Jute Laboratories. And I got to interview not only Moco, who obviously is a great guy, and we've liked him for a long time, and it's way overdue to have him on the podcast, but I even got to interview one of my huge fanboy crushes, which is CamDamage, who is a bondage model and really cool person. So you'll hear an interview with her as well. Meanwhile, of course, I have to tell you that, guess what? You are missing out if you haven't already bought your ticket to Ropecraft. Ropecraft.net. Ropecraft happens in Chicago, May 26th through the 29th. And we have just published the schedule. You can go to ropecraft.net, look under the About menu, and you'll see the schedule for the event. We have lots of classes, but there is more. For example, we just added Dr. Arabelle as one of our instructors. And I'm telling you this, so you can be ready. Soon we will be announcing the intensive that Mark Deviat will be doing. Now that's going to be an intensive where he's going to teach what he calls the Hishi series. Now Hishi is a diamond shape pattern, and he has a version of it that he's been teaching for about 12 years. Several versions of it, I should say, that are not only rock-solid suspension harnesses, but also the way he teaches it it's not just the tie, it's the principles behind the tie that he's teaching. So there will be a small intensive on Friday, the day before, or the day that Ropecraft starts, during the day. And it's going to be a limited thing, but we will let you know when they come out. You mainly want to go to ropecraft.net and make sure you are involved in the newsletter. And you may, if you haven't bought your ticket already, well, first of all, you should. And second of all, you may be not doing it because you waited too long and you missed out on the early bird pricing. I hear you. I know it's rough. You know, that whole you have to bump the prices. Well, we are keeping the next price bump from going to April 15th. So you can tell your friends, hey, you can use your tax return, but I got something better for you. If you go to the event and you type in Great Answer Guest, all one word, all lowercase, Great Answer Guest, remember Gray is spelled with an A, you will get the lowest price ticket that we've ever sold. You will get your ticket for $189.99. And yeah, that's available. Now, some of you are listening to this and you've already bought your ticket. And you're like, hey, I bought my ticket after the prices went up. And I could say, well, you know, you should run it. But I'm actually not going to do that. If you tell me that you bought your ticket beforehand, email greatanswer@gmail.com and let me know what your ticket name was. And we see that you did that. You will get a voucher for the difference that you can redeem in the vendor area. So no, we're not giving you cash back, but we are giving you value back. So remember, Great Answer Guest, please, this is only for podcast listeners, which doesn't mean you can't give it to your friends, but I prefer if instead of giving it to your friends, you send your friends a link to this podcast and say, hey, listen to the beginning of this podcast because there's something really cool at the beginning. There seems to be some confusion. I don't know how it could have happened, that when I changed the name to Great Answer Podcast, people thought the Ropecast died. It didn't. It's still here. And it's just changed the name because we talk about more than rope now. In fact, in this one, we'll talk about rope, and we'll talk about begging, and we will talk about the identity of subcultures and kink and things like that. So there's a lot of different things we talk about. But please make sure people know that you can always go to greatanswer.com, click on the link to podcast. It's right on the front page, and it will take you to all of the podcasts which are posted there. You can also go to greatanswer.libsyn.com. You can also go on iTunes and do a search for Great Answer Podcast. Really, it's all over the place, but we need to have more. So this is where I also have to say this podcast is brought to you by my wonderful sponsor, Twisted Monk. TwistedMonk.com, maker of the finest handmade hand-colored hemp rope and hand-conditioned. Now, it being April, Monk has released his color of the month. And first of all, they do sell out pretty quickly. But the other thing is that you should know that in 2017, 10% of all of the color of the month ropes are donated to charity, which is a pretty cool thing to know about. And the April color of the month is Raindrop, as he calls it, an aqueous ombre of watery blues. And everything there will be donated to one of my favorite charities, or not everything there, all 10% of the proceeds will go to the Electronic Frontier Foundation, which, oh my God, if you listen to our whole Crypto Kink Palooza podcasts, you know that is something that is near and dear to my my heart. We are also sponsored by the wonderful person behind JapaneseBound.com. Now, JapaneseBound.com is the best place for you to find the really authentic and hard to get hold of videos by the Japanese masters. For example, Yukimura Haruki, Mirai Masato, Kai, Nakakira. They have lots of things, and they have featured videos, which, can be just porn and really hot stuff. I'm looking at Kawakami Yu has a version of them out in snow, doing snow bondage. But you also get some solid instructional videos as well. So if that's something you're looking for, it's also digital downloads. You don't have to try and order a DVD and hope that it plays in your player and wait for it to come over from Japan and possibly get bitten by customs and things like that. So I have really enjoyed the Yukimura Haruki videos that I have bought from them. And if you go and you go to that site, you will be helping support the Ropecast. Look at that. I can't even change the name. You'll be helping support this podcast as well. And now let's go to the tape. This starts out in the Chicago GRUE at Galleria Domain 2, which was a fantastic place to have a GRUE. And it was some speculation between Monkey Fetish and the Magister and myself. And, this is something that might be a little controversial. I'm not going to discuss it a whole lot. But if you have controversial things you say about it, then I suggest you contact me at greatanswer@gmail.com and we can discuss it further. All right, so I'm here at the Chicago GRUE, and my dear friend Monkey and I are bellied up to the pancake bar here. And various people are enjoying the carbs, and we also have Magister over here to the left, and I'm forgetting your name. Nick over here on the right. And Magister left. Okay, fine. But Monkey was talking about, we were talking about how this GRUE kind of felt like some of the old days in Chicago. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it's back in the day, I sound old. We had to tie a rope uphill, backwards, upside down, both ways.
Before we could use make rope
our
out
own
of it,
jute,
yeah.
right? I mean, it's the story of the ages. But because we didn't have the forms and the techniques and the things figured out, we were doing it ourselves. I don't know if you were ever here for the times when I was tying my wife at the time, and we'd go on the winch, which I later learned out was bad because it wasn't a
suspension-worthy winch.
Well, no, it's a suspension-worthy winch. I designed the damn thing, but the problem was that everybody said no. We use frames because we can tie off to multiple spaces, and that's more authentic.
Yeah,
and that happened to my first Shibari Con that I was pulley shamed.
Pulleys, we don't need pulleys.
So I would literally tie my wife up to the single point winch on the floor and crank her up, and she'd go ow, 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 and then I'd crank her back down, and we'd do this about 5 times before eventually what happened is I reached my limit of trying, and I'd be like, fuck it, I'm done, and I'd walk away in a huff, and then we'd come back next week and we'd do it again.
Yes.
Right? So,
and of course now, she's suffered all kinds of injuries and can't use her left eye and is dead also, right?
Correct, yeah, dead. Yeah.
No, actually, I want to make the point of we oftentimes stress about, oh my God, if you don't do this right, you're going to ruin somebody forever. And a lot of stuff is figured out, trial and error, and people live through it.
Oh, yeah, completely. I mean, it's and as much as I wish I had those tools that we have today, I like to call it rope technology, right? We've progressed in our technology of how we do things, and at the same time, having done it the hard way, there's some benefit in being able to tie anything on site without knowing how to do it. So people should practice that kind of thing. But anyway,
you had a theory about the whole
going
glamorization of the usually Japanese, but in frankly, the whole rigger rock star kind of thing, especially in terms of it being not just great performer or hot person doing it, but also this idea that there is a fount of knowledge that we must drink from in order to be allowed to tie or teach.
Hey, now, the thing you got to take from this is I'm an engineer and a nerd and a bit autistic, so I study people so that I can sort of understand a little bit because I don't do it naturally. So over the years, I've developed a theory, and that is that we are, as the heterosexual community as a whole, we don't have an identity, right? So
keep talking.
The gay leather community actually had a case where they had a shared trauma, the shared trauma of the AIDS crisis, the shared trauma of coming back from World War II and having formed strong bonds with their mates and coming back to a society that didn't accept them.
Yeah.
Right? So they have a history, a touchstone. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that they're starting to see the little bit of edges of losing that. Because when you're talking about sex stuff, what do you want to do? You want to get your rocks off, right? You want to, and of course, I'm generalizing as these conversations are wont to be, but you are trying to actually make, have connections with people, and you have the internet, and so those spaces that had to be built are no longer necessary. And so
perhaps not as necessary. They're more common. I think they are still necessary.
Right. Yes, true. And so end result is what I think my theory for the Japanese inspired rope, shibari, whatever we want to call it, is
Kinbaku. Where have you been?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Please. If we weren't silly, we probably wouldn't be friends.
This is very true.
So, end result is that we sort of have, unlike the people who are doing flogging or single tails, maybe with single tails you say, oh, well, that goes back to the cowboy days or something like that. But if you're a person doing floggers, do you have any history to touch back to?
Not so much that you really want to claim, I think.
Right, exactly. But we...
British Navy, maybe.
Maybe.
I can't think of many other ones that the use of flogging was a very good, positive situation.
Well, I guess not positive. I was thinking of self-flagellation.
Oh yeah, religious self-flagellation. Sure. Okay. So yeah, that too.
Right, but it's not like a cultural identity.
Yeah.
Maybe there are people that like to play based inspired by Catholic their Catholic history, but
thank you, Catholic schools.
Schoolgirl skirts.
Anyway,
but anyway, we're back.
Don't worry, we'll edit that part out.
So what we wind up happening is rope. We've found that there's somebody else that was already doing this, and they have a history, no matter how much it matches what we've romanticized.
To say,
right?
Yeah, they have a history, but
and it sort of doesn't matter how true it is or how accurate it is and how it relates to the sexualization and the rope we use it for today.
We turn it into what we need.
It's an identity that we can say, look, that is us. We are bigger than just trying to get our rocks off. We're actually participating in something bigger.
Yeah,
and that's powerful.
But so here's my argument: is that we live in a culture, especially nowadays, where they are actively trying to make sure people can't get their rocks off, or if they do, they will get punished for it in extreme ways. So the act of being in a culture where the goal is to get your rocks off is an act of resistance against the pervasive repressive culture.
In the U.S.
In the U.S. Well, in any pervasive repressive culture, but yeah, you don't agree.
It's repressive desublimation again, Marcuse.
Okay, can you define that for those of us with a dance degree?
I have an art degree, so no.
Okay.
No. It's the concept where kind of capitalism allows you a certain amount of pleasure. Mm-hmm. And in a way, I think rope, because it does, for some people, bypass the genitals, gives you that kind of version of a certain amount of pleasure and no more.
Okay.
But keep in mind, like, Marcuse was inspired by Freud, so his ideal is letting the id run wild.
I'm going to say anybody that was inspired by Freud, I'm going to have severe doubts about, because Freud was really fucked up and high on cocaine most of the time.
Freud was a great storyteller, though.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it was any of it true.
Allegory. Think of it as an allegory as opposed to something that's true.
Okay.
Tell me about your mother.
Yeah.
Hey, obligatory Freud joke.
Isn't that a line from Blade Runner?
Wow, we are going all over the place here. Okay, so actually, but I'm gonna pursue this idea, because I personally think the idea that we have conventions like this is even more important now than it even used to be, because of the fact that actively people are trying to take away control of how we express our sexuality and how we use our bodies, starting with the gay, queer culture and women's bodies, but I don't think it's going to stop there. And that's why I think it's important that all of us are doing it. That's my opinion.
Right. I mean, but that's, I will give you that, yes, it's absolutely important, and it's tangential to...
Intersectional, I think that's what you want to hear.
Intersectional, crud. There's another term, but I lost it. But the fact that we need our space, and we are working on our own community, is not exactly related to our grasping onto like the Japanese identity. And I think that in some ways, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, which I am perfectly willing to be argued with, that we are a little bit worse for it because we're not developing our own identity.
I have a question for you then. So, do you find this obsession with, let's say, Japanese art in other countries besides the U.S.?
Yes, it is strong in Europe.
Because the thing I was saying also is that we as a culture seem to have zero history, so the desperate need to find a history to latch onto seems kind of pervasive in the U.S. at least. And I was wondering if it was a common.
So I have to. Here's I recently read this because there's a lot of talk about how Iron Fist, the new Netflix show, really sucks, and they missed an opportunity to have an Asian American actor in that role, which would have been better. Because the story is, a white millionaire crash lands in China, learns martial arts, and then comes back to the U.S. with his magic kung fu powers. And somebody said, I want to see the one where a Chinese girl crash lands in the American West and then returns to China with her amazing gunslinger powers.
That sounds hot.
I know, and everybody's like, "Yes, I want to see this. I want to see this."
Like
and that's part of it is that we actually there is an alternate reality where instead of us worshiping the Japanese bondage, we are all wearing little navy outfits from the British Navy, and we're using nautical terms for things. And there's another subculture where we're all wearing chaps and cowboy hats. And we're tying things up in like speed roping, and we're doing branding contests and things like that because we have a culture. There is a history there. I think it also is attached to so much other bad things that we don't want to pay attention to it. And we'd rather do the whole exoticizing the Asian side of things.
I see what you're saying, that basically we don't have to face the sins of our forefathers by fetishizing somebody else's history.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, cool. Well, thanks for the input. If you have anything to say in retribution to this, or I'm sorry, retribution is the right word, in countering this or giving other perspectives, feel free to email greatanswer@protonmail.com, and I'll forward it on to Monkey, and we will cry together in our beer.
Absolutely, and I think we can only sort this out with cage match.
Cage match, absolutely. 2 Doms enter, 1 Dom leaves.
Perfect.
So that was an interesting theory, and one of the cool things about this is that I actually had a contact with Miss Heather HC from Toronto, and there is a paper being written about the cultural identities of various kink cultures, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. Maybe we can have her on the podcast as well. But speaking of cool people to talk to on the podcast, next up, we have the delightful Pepper Potts. Now, I have been an admirer of Pepper's online for a very long time because, well, she was just awesome. I love her Twitter feed. Obviously, her name, Pepper Potts, implies a love of service and things like that. And so I got to enjoy some of that at the South Carolina GRUE, which is run by Artemis N. Artemis, good job. Good job on that GRUE. He's coming up here to Pittsburgh to enjoy GRUE 69 too. And looking forward to hanging out with him again. But there was just one little tiny bit of wisdom that came out that I felt had to be preserved in audio. And so this is that part, and it's not about rope. It's about something very different. Okay, so we're here at the Post-GRUE, and we were talking about the subject of begging. And I have long been trying to, figure out how to express to people that I want them to be begging when I'm playing with them. And Pepper Potts actually came up with a very good formula and example of what that is. And Pepper, could you share that with the Great Answer podcast audience?
Said that begging is not asking for something, it's proving your desperation.
Proving your desperation.
Yes.
As in asking for what you. Well, yeah, you can give an example if you want, but you specifically said it's not about asking for something. It's about telling someone how much you want it.
Yes.
Okay.
You don't have to ask for anything. You just have to prove to them how much you want it.
So for example, let's say that you really wanted a drink of my mango juice, and that's not a euphemism. We're at a place called Tortas. If you really wanted to have a drink of my mango juice, how would you beg for it?
I would tell you how much I wanted to put my mouth on your mango juice. how it would taste so sweet and juicy in my mouth, and how I just need to taste it. It will be like I've never drank anything before in my life as delicious as it.
Okay, that's pretty good, and I think we broke AO.
Well, I'm looking at all the families surrounding us and listening to this as this happens.
We're talking about mangoes.
I realize this, which is, yeah.
All right, well, thank you. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
Okay, so maybe that was a little ridiculous, but hey, it was a neat idea. And I love that thing of it's not about asking for something, it's about telling someone how much you want it. That is a great shortcut to when somebody says, I want to hear you beg, which is something you might hear from me if you play with me. Anyway, now we get into the real meat of this podcast. I got to interview two people who I really have wanted to talk to for a while. One that I knew I was going to see, Moco. I made got to spend a fun time staying with Lizard and got to see Ren from the Baltimore CBC. By the way, if you look at my Twitter feed or on my Facebook, you'll see a great fundraiser for the Baltimore CBC with really cool T-shirts, and you need more T-shirts. But anyway, so Lizard and I went there, and we got to do a little scene and got to have Lochai film it. But I also got to have CamDamage be interviewed, which was fantastic. It's like a bonus. So here you get to hear CamDamage talking about her work, and I think along with that, a little bit of Lochai as well. So that what you just heard, if you heard that, that was CamDamage saying, first of all, she hates gray, which is kind of awkward because I've been a fan of CamDamage's work for a very long time, and I'm kind of trying real hard not to be a fanboy squee right now. And now I know that she hates me. Okay, that's fine. I can deal with it. Luckily, I am here among friends, some of them. No, this is actually kind of pretty awesome because I finally made it to MocoJute Studios, which I've been wanting to do for well over a year. Actually, has it been here for longer than a year? I don't know. As long as it's been around, I've wanted to come visit. And it is even better in person than I imagined. And I'm here with Lizard, and I'm trying to think. I don't want to use real names. Lizard and Moco and Lochai and Sardonic and CamDamage, and what name can I use? Moonin. And Moonin, and what name can I use on my podcast for you? Brad. And so yeah, I'm feeling pretty awesome. We're eating New York style pizza, which is excellent pizza, and an excellent choice by Moco because he has undisputably good taste in pizza. And now Lizard's going to eat my crust. That didn't sound as erotic as I wanted it to. Oh well.
That sounds really gross, actually.
Yeah, it does. Anyway, okay. So you were saying that you've been to like intensives here. Tell me about intensives. What were they like?
I haven't been to an intensive here. I was involved in teaching one with my rope family.
That would be at an intensive. Mm-hmm. You can be at an intensive and be teaching it.
Yes.
Okay. So how was that?
I hope it went well.
You're not being very descriptive.
I'm terrible.
That's all right. I'm also catching you within. That's okay.
I got food in my mouth.
I'll go put someone else on the spot real quick. Oh my God! It's CamDamage.
Oh my God! It's Gray. This is my radio voice.
Welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
I seriously did not know you were going to be here, so like any questions that I would have had to ask you are like totally flying out of my head.
Done for.
Even though I have often looked at your pictures and gone, I want to interview her for the podcast and find. Okay, I know what I'm going to ask you. So here's the thing. One of the things about your stuff you post that is different, that makes it stand out to me from the other stuff that I look at, and I look at a lot of that stuff, is that you kind of have a narrative to the stuff that you do. I mean, there's like a story in the pictures that you post. It's not just, hey, look at me, beautiful person, tied up. It's like, beautiful person. It feels like that anyway. That's I may be projecting on that. Do you actually like think about when you were going to do a shoot? Do you think of how you're going to do that?
It's not necessarily like I think of a story the whole time, but my shoots always start in a certain place where I like think of a concept. Like, one of my favorite ones was the rice kneeling shoot, where I was just like, I'm just gonna kneel on some rice. But it went from like me holding the rice and putting it on the ground to tying myself up to kneeling on the rice and all the like stuff in between there. So it usually just like finds a story in itself when I shoot, if that makes sense. But it always starts with a vague theme. Like,
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I'm not good at this shit.
No,
I have to swear.
Yeah. You can fucking swear as much as you fucking want. Yeah. So cool. So and does Brad help you out with this in terms of
Not
the shoots
usually
and
when
stuff?
I'm shooting and stuff. It's just me home alone, and that makes him worried because when I self-suspend home alone, I'll like not talk for like 2 or 3 hours, and he'll be like, "What the fuck is going on?" But I'm very safe, Drew. I promise.
No judgment, no if you want. And your email is so people can yell at you. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So, and how did you get started doing in rope? I mean, there's probably a journey there where it's like rope and then doing rope for photography and posting it and things like that.
I got tied up by a girl like a little over a year ago, and it was my first time getting seriously tied up, and I was just like, this is awesome. And she left me 2 hanks of rope, and I started self-tying from there. And then it just went from there and kind of went bananas. Especially when I moved here, it got like really, really intense.
Well, yeah, this particular scene is kind of a bubble in the rope world. Yeah, very much so. Cool. So, do you have any favorite? Well, that'd be kind of naming, but let's say, tell me about someone who tied you that you really enjoyed, and what you enjoyed about it. Like what it was, what quality it was. You don't have to name them by name, but it's kind of what do you look for if you're going to be tied by somebody else, and if not, then tell me about your self tying. Like what kind of qualities do you get out of that?
I think with any tying, what I'm looking for is like kind of the, for lack of a better word, escapist experience where you don't have to think of anything besides doing rope. I don't know. Is it sort of okay? Where you don't have to think of anything besides like being tied up and processing the pain you're in or whatever you're experiencing, and that's your only focus. Like, because I'm a very anxiety-prone person, so it's nice when you're in rope to not think about any of the other bullshit in life, and that's my biggest thing with it, I think.
So having just met you, as an awkward question, but as a person involved in the rope scene, I kind of have to. I don't have to ask this. I would like to ask you a somewhat personal question.
Go for it.
So feel free to say none of your business. Let's move on to the next question, and I'll come with something easy. So does rope have a sexual component to you? And if so, is it always there, or is it sometimes there, or what is the dependency of it?
I think it does, but it's not always there. It depends on the energy exchange that's happening, or the person who's tying, or what the emotions are going into any like given rope thing. Like when I self-tie, it's certainly not a sexual thing most of the time. Like I usually apply that to make it like sexier for viewers and stuff. But when I'm just tying myself, I'm like, I'm fucking tired. Like this is really aggravating. But depending on the person, yeah, it can definitely be sexy. And if I'm tying someone, like if I'm tying him half the time, well, my partner, sorry, Brad, half the time it's like not sexual because I'm really frustrated and like just trying to deal with shit. But then sometimes I'm like, I'm doing good, let's get your dick out, you know?
I think that needs to be on a T-shirt.
I'm doing good.
Maybe that could be a new Hitchin' Bitches theme, you know? I'm doing good, let's get your dick out.
Yeah.
Not necessarily.
Anyway,
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
It doesn't have to be a bio dick. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's assuming that
It
you're
could-
eccentric.
How about let's get a dick out?
Let's get some Jennies out. Jennies, genitals.
Jennies?
Yeah,
Genitals.
that's right.
I like that. All right. That's pretty cool.
My name is Jen. There you go. Boom.
So,
That's not a secret. You don't have to.
thank you for telling me that. I'm going, oh, fuck.
Gotta bleep that out.
Yeah. And we all know how good I am at editing. So, is this actually a profession for you, or is it just a hobby?
Technically,
Just a hobby's not the right word.
Yeah, technically it is a profession because my job is having a website where I do like photo shoots of myself, and they used to not be rope based all the time, but now they're like 90% rope based.
Mm-hmm.
So like self tying, I would say, is a profession more than getting tied or tying other people. But being tied and stuff is a hobby, I would say. Well, hobby, as we all.
Yeah.
It's a lot more serious than that. But
I'm actually sitting here really stunned that it's only been a year for you that you've
Yeah.
done this, because I feel like you've been around. In my head, you're like, been around forever and ever, and that's kind of funny that it speaks to the volume of your work.
It's been a big year
Yeah.
since we moved here. Because we moved here in what? last April. So yeah, it's really just been a year now. Yeah.
Nice.
Pretty crazy. That's crazy.
So where are you hoping to head with it? What are you planning on going with it?
I don't know.
You're going to bed later.
Well, I like saying that. I'm going to bed. Well, bed's my first convention. I just hope to actually start to take lessons as a rigger and become a more serious... I know, I'm going to talk to you about that.
There might be one or two people in this area that could help you with that.
I need to hire for privates. And like become a more serious, focused rigger and actually study it, because so far I'm all self-taught, which has been decent, but now that I'm getting a little further, I'm like, I don't know shit. There's no teachers here. I'm like I'm at a loss. I was humoring him. And then travel to learn is also a next goal, because I have friends in Japan now, so I want to go there, but I need to learn stuff here first before I get ahead of myself.
You know, a great place to learn a lot of different kinds of rope is these things called GRUEs that happen.
Yeah.
I think there's one going to be happening in Baltimore. Ramble GRUE is also a really good place. So yeah, just recommend. Yeah, Pittsburgh GRUE in a couple of weeks. Rochester, just head up to Rochester this next
I
weekend.
didn't know there was a Baltimore one, actually.
Yeah, Baltimore's coming up. Rigger J's heading up that, and I can't think of the date right off the top of my head, but it's on GRUE.space. Anyway, I was just making a joke, and it's turned into a self-promotion. Yeah. Pardon me while I spread my cheeks and plug myself. Yeah. I made Brad win, so okay, yeah, that's cool. Awesome. Any advice for people that want to get into self-tying? Because it's starting to become big. At Ropecraft, we actually have a dedicated room for self-tying. All the classes there are self-tying, and on Sunday it's a self-tie suspension jam. So it's getting to be a big thing, and more people are getting into it. Any suggestions for people that lessons you wish you'd known beforehand?
Don't get ahead of yourself and get educated before you start doing stuff, because it's really easy to like think you know what you're doing, but you really have no idea what the hell you're doing, and you need to know what you're doing before you try to tackle self-tying stuff. Like, it's fine to practice like when you're sitting on the ground and stuff, but I started trying to self-suspend and didn't know how to do uplines, which a few people here called me on, which is great, and I'm very grateful.
And that's one of the classes we have for self-suspension.
There you go.
Great,
but definitely like educate yourself as much as possible, with even if it's just like looking stuff up online, buying tutorials and stuff online, actually not just doing free YouTube videos, or hiring people in real life, which is the best way to go.
Absolutely. Or going to Good Rope Convention. No, I won't explain myself anymore.
That or going to like Krakens. There's a local thing around here.
Just experiencing
Plugging.
stuff. Krakens.
Yeah, no, finding. I mean, the podcast goes out to globally, so it's hard to plug one thing. But yeah, if you're in Baltimore, Kraken's Lair is definitely a good place for it. Yeah, cool. Well, thanks. I'll stop bothering you. Let you go back to eating and stuff. So.
I'll stop blushing.
Yay!
Right, folks. I have a camera. If you haven't noticed.
I do too.
Okay.
This is the voice of Lochai.
I am starting to. I am starting to shoot again. I used to do a lot of shooting. I put my camera down a couple of years ago, and I just picked it up again. I'm going to be doing a couple of series, riggers, bottoms, and a gender series. And I want to start photographing people in their, I guess you can say, element. If you are a rigger, I want to photograph you as a rigger.
I'm not a rigger. I just fuck a lot.
Not, oh, look at this beautiful tie, but, oh, look at me doing my art. As a bottom, I want you to be comfortable in what you're doing. And I'm going to be doing video. I'm going to be doing photos and interviews and all that. So this is going to be a couple of years worth. But that's why I have my camera here now.
Come back.
For a couple of my favorite people.
Oh, no, we're not. We'll also take it.
Sending pictures to my wife.
Cool.
Where's she at?
Ambiance. If we talk in here, it sounds great, and I can always edit out any of the bad sounds. Not that I actually edit, but it's a nice idea. So I just got done seeing Moco tie CamDamage in a fucking amazing thing. In fact, it was so hot that it basically inspired me and Lizard to not get our hands off each other. You know that's true. Don't even pretend. Yeah, you were basically, you were a private porn show, just so you know.
I am. Well, that's all on CamDamage. It's all about the bottom.
No. It was YouTube. No, sorry. We were watching YouTube, buddy. I hope that's okay that I have your consent to say you're fucking hot. But yeah, that was part of it too. Anyway, you were. First of all, tell me about these rocks you're using.
These big old boulders are put together by Sardonic. And they're actually tied with one of the original set of rope I gave him, which is actually Wicked Dave. So they've got a little bit of meaning to him because we swapped out ropes once upon a time. I got his hemp, he got my jute.
Cool. So and you use them. I've usually seen them like dangling down, but they work as ground weights too.
If you get one heavy enough, and to be perfectly honest with you, that's the first time I've ever done that.
Oh.
I don't ever go into anything and plan anything.
Well, I thought it was fucking fantastic because we need more toys to play with on the ground, and it looks really good when you have it like put out to the side and you draw. That was great.
Like parallel lines and stuff like that. Yeah. No, it's fun, but they're heavy.
Yeah. And I was saying, I would worry about putting him in a dungeon because I'd worry people were going to like pick him up and start swinging him around and shit like that. So just so people can know, we are watching Lizard tie GRUE in a TK. That is one that I haven't actually learned how to do yet, so it's kind of cool. But you were going to talk about a 3 millimeter?
Yeah, you mentioned the 3 millimeter sadistic rope that I have.
Yeah.
And so basically it's just a shitty piece of rope that feels uncomfortable because it's tiny and compact, and when you first get it, all we do is singe it. We don't do anything else to it.
I was going to ask for that because it's stuff that's hanging out there, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I felt that and I was like, oh, looks cool. Oh my God, that's so fucking rough.
It's meant to suck, but at the same time, it won't stay that way forever because it's jute, so it will shimmer down.
Yeah, I'm thinking that actually would be a good CBT rope too.
Oh, it's amazing for CBT. It's also amazing for nose hooks, fingers.
Oh yeah, that's right, nose
hair,
hooks.
All
And
the
you
things.
and you actually have a selection of nose hooks that you're selling now?
Yeah. They are not up for sale yet because they're that amazing, and I don't know how to price point them. But yes, we are selling nose hooks by Monkey Fetish, and they are custom designed, made specifically not to slip out, but to also give a little. So that way, with the traditional metal nose hook, where you could get really uncomfortable, like unpleasant, non-sadistic pain, like you could rip something. These are meant to stay in and stay in place and actually give a little, because it's cartilage and whatnot.
So what? Tell me about the space. Like, what was your dream in coming up with the space? We're in Moco Jute Studios. For those who haven't been keeping up on this podcast.
Moco Jute Laboratories.
Moco Jute Laboratories.
The dream behind it, honestly, was to have a place where I could bring my dogs in and work. Unfortunately, it did not plan out that way because one of my dogs is very skittish, and there's a train track / dump truck facility right next door, and also due to the amount of dirt in here, my other dog is super hypoallergenic, so he can't come in here either.
Wow.
But yeah, the dream was to have my own space where I could make rope and then possibly host educational stuff and small get-togethers.
And you've been doing that here a little bit, right?
Yes, very, very low-key. Very rarely. Sometimes it's just to help pay the rent.
That's fair. So is this a place where you do private lessons as well?
No, actually, I do all the private lessons at home.
Gotcha.
It's too expensive.
I say you have a very nice rope room set up at home, too.
Yeah. At the house, it's smaller. I don't have to worry about paying for the electricity and the gas.
I hear you.
So this is more of a functional layout. Like the last place you saw, where I was renting space, I had to set everything up.
Each time you try to make something,
out. So if you want to walk, we can walk and talk. And you can see what we've got set up here now.
So what I'm looking at looks like several kind of sawhorses, about 6 feet long. And underneath each one is a spool, 5 spools underneath the sawhorses, which are fed up through little eyelets. And each of these is a single strand of rope. Now I see 5 here. Would this be for one piece of rope?
Yes, actually, this right here is going to be, this is EM spec and Moco Nawa spec.
Okay.
The next spec over here would be original Moco or the Great Answer spec. And then over here is the new Wicked Dave spec.
And the thing that changes on each of them is the arrangement of the eyelets that the rope is fed through. Has that changed the tension of it, or what?
No, actually, they're all set up the same way.
Oh, they are. They look different. Okay. Oh, it's just the size of the first one
This
are
way
bigger.
I don't have to. I can just pull. I don't have to set up everything.
Right. And then you have your hand drills that do it, and and we have the lines on the ground as well.
Fame, right?
Yep.
We got EM, MBE, Naka, Kana, Murphy, and and then there's a couple other ones that just the names got worn off. So there'd be the Grey Dancer up here as well, and then who else am I missing? I don't know who else. No, that's everybody. Oh, Sardonic Spec.
Sardonic Spec, yeah.
But you don't get a name yet. You
Oh, and you have one that you made for a bottom spec, right?
Well, yeah, that recently happened. Like, Kana and Kogora have been using my stuff unofficially for 2 years.
Okay.
And they just recently messaged me and said that they wanted to get actual official sponsee status, which I don't ever pressure anybody, so I was like fucking blown away.
That is pretty big, yeah, when they want it, yeah.
And so I think, well, I know Kana spec is on the way, and I definitely want to make a Kogora spec as well. So she's gotten her own set of rope 3 years in a row now, and she has something that she likes.
So getting away from business for a second, just thinking about the scene I just saw you do with CamDamage. Like, when you're going into a scene like that, what are you, do you have it all planned out in your head exactly, or is it a bit by bit, or how much do you improvise on the moment, or?
Everything's improvisation. I'm a jazz tire.
I like that. Okay.
Very primal. I've never gone in with a plan. The most I would ever do is like, okay, I'm going to hit something at one point in time, but everything I do is reflexes and basically just, be reacting to the bottom and also taking in part of what they can and cannot do, because that's what I always ask. And
I think it's important to people that are listening that it's not like you just picked up rope and started making shit up as you went along. You've been through a hell of a lot of training and studied with some great people in order to get good enough that you could then just go in and improvise.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, it's like, I was paying homage to Lochai, who's here. He's my first teacher, and he took me under his wing, and he never really taught, he never taught cooking classes or recipe classes. It was always the what, reason, and why behind everything. So, like, if you've ever met me before or gone to any of my classes, I do 3 things really well. I tie a single column tie really well, I tie a box tie really well, and I can do a futomomo. So everything else is just, going with the flow of the moment.
Yeah, and the process. Now, one thing you and I have talked about a lot today, and you brought it up a lot, is the fact that you feel that people need to pay a little more attention to the rope handling.
Yeah, it's pretty much when I stand on a soapbox, that's what's happening these days. For the past 2 years, all my intensives have focused solely on rope handling and rope care. Rope is a fucking tool. It's great to fetishize it, but the best analogy I can give somebody is if you want to, build a house, you need to learn how to swing a hammer and, read blueprints, right? You just can't pick up a rope and start doing shit. You can, but you're not going to do it safely or correctly. Right? So I pretty much preach, know what you're using, know how to care for it, and then know how to properly handle your rope. I don't think my way is the end-all be-all, because that's just bullshit. But as long as I can get people thinking about where their rope is being placed, because that also affects things such as tension and, all the other key things about tying,
If somebody doesn't have access to come into your classes, where can you find out about that kind of stuff?
Rope handling itself, or?
Yeah. Like somebody says, oh shit, I haven't paid attention to this, I need to fix that. I live in bumfuck Egypt, what am I going to do?
I would say attend a rope con.
Okay.
There's a couple out there.
1 or 2, so I hear.
Ropecraft or Bondage Expo Dallas.
You mentioned Ropecraft first. I'm honored. Wow. Okay. Thank you, man.
Well, one day I'll get out there.
Yes.
I just got to step my game up.
In some ways, mentioning it to me like that moves you to the top of the list. It does work. So yeah, Ropecraft, Bondage with Dallas. Any specific people? Is there anything online or anything?
As far as rope handling goes, there isn't, and I've thought about putting something up online, but I just haven't done it yet. I've got so many coals and so many fires.
Well, yeah.
And also, it's kind of my bread and butter right now, so it's like.
Yeah, I hear you. Although the thing is that people like me and Lochai and stuff, you can put rope instruction online, and it's been my experience anyway that it doesn't substitute for the in-person thing. I don't think I've ever had anyone who said, "Oh, I don't need to go to your class. I saw you online." Instead, I have people who say, "I saw you online, and I really wanted to come to your class." So that's cool. That's cool. And that's an important thing to change the perspective of. I think kind of like the bottom-focused classes, knowing that there's more to it, like you say, than a recipe class, that does help out.
Yeah, and that's like one of the biggest things. Like when I do teach, I'm hands-on.
Mm-hmm.
I really hate standing up there and blabbering. Like I'm more of a get your rope in your hands and let's start doing this. So it's a good point. Maybe I should put up a video. I don't know. I've got a couple videos on YouTube. MocoJute. Just look it up. But I just haven't really thought about that yet, I guess.
Yeah, you could always just do here's the top 3 things. Do these top 3 things. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot more, and if you want to see that, then you have to, the first one's free. After that, you got to pay. Cool. Well, I'm going to do a review later on of your 3mm torture rope, see if I can use it around for some things, and we'll pimp that as well. So when people want to look at your stuff and get your store, what's your website?
MocoJute.com. You can spell it correctly at MocoJute, or you can spell it like FetLife, where it's M0COJUTE.com.
Which gives you geek points, but market ranking wise, it's hard. Yeah, I know. And on Twitter, you're also MocoJute.
Yeah, spelled correctly, because my old account was removed due to graphic sexual violence.
Oh, no, not that. It's a very entertaining game. You're one of my favorite people to follow on Twitter. So,
yeah,
cool.
I've got all the accounts. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the things.
Cool. So what's next for Moco Jute Laboratories? Any new projects?
Let's see. Right now, we're going to do another father-son intensive with Lochai. We were supposed to have somebody out here, but that fell through. As far as this laboratory goes, it might be moving because we are looking at moving. So that's a thing that could happen.
Hey, it happens. Iteration happens.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, thanks for talking on the podcast.
Anytime, brother.
All right. So that was Moco and CamDamage and Lochai, and I want to thank them for hosting me. I want to thank Lizard for that as well. Also, a little shout out to Evan and Calipagus for taking me up from the South Carolina GRUE up to Virginia, where I could see those people, and even providing me some emergency crash space, and also a little shout out to Maymoon, whose house was also there, although I didn't get to see him. And they even helped me do my laundry, which was a lot of fun. And if you went to the Rochester GRUE, you know what I mean. Meanwhile, I just want to give also another shout out to my sponsors, Twisted Monk. Remember, 10% of all of the Color of the Month profits go to the Electronic Frontier Foundation this month, so go to twistedmonk.com. And also JapaneseBound.com, which has fantastic videos with all kinds of Japanese bondage that you travel to places to go and see and learn. And you can do it right there in the privacy of your own computer. And since he's sitting next to me here on the couch, I also want to give a shout out to Twisted View, who his sponsorship provided the software that I'm recording this on. So if it sounds good, it's his fault. And if it sounds bad, it's his fault.
User error.
Well, or I just don't have a microphone on connected right now. But tomorrow night we are going to go visit Pittsburgh Rope Bite, and it's the sixth
year anniversary.
6th year anniversary of the Pittsburgh Rope Bite, which is going to be a lot of fun. I might be able to get a couple interviews in while I'm down there. And then, of course, on the weekend, it's GRUE 69. Woo! And that will be in Pittsburgh. I would tell you to buy tickets, but hey, we're sold out. So you'll have to come to GRUE 70, which I believe is going to be the Philly GRUE in June. Meanwhile, go get your Ropecraft tickets if you haven't already. Remember, you can use Great Answer Guest as your code to get the lowest price possible for these things. 4 days, 3 nights of parties, intensive special interest groups, performances. Oh my God, it's going to be amazing. Your open space, led by, who did we ask to present it? Oh yes, that's right. Twisted View will be running their open space.
Hello.
If you have any questions about the podcast or suggestions, greatanswer@gmail.com is the email to use. Or you heard before, Great Answer Proton Mail too. I just don't use that as much because it tends to go to spam after I return the messages, which doesn't work so well. Still don't have a good tagline. Have you thought of a good tagline for my podcast? I cannot think of a good tagline because that's some good Great Answer. No, that doesn't work.
That's some good kink.
No, it doesn't work either. I don't know.
It's hard.
Still in search of a tagline, but
really hard.
It's There we go. Remember, coming to you from Great Answers Podcast, where it's hard. It's really hard. Okay, I like it, but doesn't really work. But all right, talk to you next time.